Our wisdom, because I feel like I'm getting in touch with that higher knowledge more. For 30 years, Dolly Parton kept a secret about Kenny Rogers. It had their biggest hit, credit that was stolen, and she had to keep a promise. Dolly could have helped Kenny when his business fell apart in the 1990s. She didn't say anything instead. On stage, their meeting in 2017 looked great, but behind the scenes, Kenny finally told everyone what he had done in 1983. No one thought the deception would be so bad. The reason why America's favorite couple didn't talk much for years is clear. What Kenny said will change the way you always listen to their songs. This is where Dolly Parton was born on January 19, 1946. It was in a one-room house in the hills of Locust Ridge, Tennessee. Robert Lee Parton and Avie Lee Owens had 12 children, and she was the fourth. Because they were so poor, her dad gave a sack of cornmeal to the doctor to pay for giving birth to her. There was no power, running water, or privacy in the cabin. There were 3 or 4 kids to a bed. At night, some of the younger kids would wet the bed, and Dolly would often be in the middle of it and wake up cold and ashamed. But used to it. For food, they used whatever they could find, like beans or biscuits. Her dad never learned to read or write, but he was very good at business. After all that trouble, her song, Coat of Many Colors, would be a patchwork of pain and pride. She began singing at her grandfather's Pentecostal church when she was 6 years old. He led the church. The song sounded like promises as they echoed through the wooden walls. When she was 8, her Uncle Bill Owens gave her a cheap guitar, and that was it. She played until her fingers hurt. She started singing on the Cass Walker Show from Knoxville when she was 10 years old. It didn't pay much, but I could buy food and shoes with it. She made her first song, Puppy Love, when she was 13. For that one chance, her uncle drove her 30 hours on the bus to Lake Charles, Louisiana. Even though the song didn't do well, she remembers the diesel fumes, the sweat, and how painful it was to be turned down. She sang at the Grand Ole Opry that same year and got 3 more chances to do so. Even though she was young, the crowd kept telling her to come back. She lost someone early on. Larry, her brother, died just 4 days after being born in 1955. It stuck with the family even though they didn't talk about it much. Dolly's songs showed how sad she was. She began writing songs before she could read when she was 5 years old. Little Tiny Tassel Top, her first song, was written on the back of church papers. By the time she was 7, she had turned a broken mandolin into a guitar with 2 strings and was playing away. The spooky mountain songs and her mother's voice shaped her sound. Songs about desire, being poor, and having grit. In later work, these early cracks turned into gold lines. After high school, she didn't wait long. In 1964, she jumped on a train to Nashville with her Uncle Bill, just 1 day after graduating from high school. Their hotel bills were paid for. She slept in cars. It was rough, and he wrote songs at Combine Publishing during the day. Skeeter Davis picked up one of her early hits, Fuel to the Flame, in 1967. It got a lot of attention on the charts. In the end, Dolly said that all she brought to town with her were hopes and a suitcase full of songs. It was true. She kept writing 10 songs a week even though she kept getting turned down until people in the city heard her singing. At age 13, the same year she made her Opry appearance, she met Johnny Cash behind the scenes. He told her to trust her gut after hearing her sing. That piece of advice was like a secret tool to her. When her 1963 song, Dreamer, didn't do well, she almost gave up. She did remember what Cash said, though. They kept her on solid ground. She went back to school for a while, but the fire never went away. 3 times, the Opry cheered for her. Moments like that don't go away. It was 1964, and she met Carl Thomas Dean outside of a laundromat in Nashville. He wasn't in music. He did not desire attention. It was a secret wedding. It took place in Ringgold, Georgia, on May 30, 1966. There was only Dolly's mom, the preacher, and his wife. The marriage wasn't made public by her record company. They hid it for a year because they thought it would hurt her reputation. They were married for almost 60 years, until Dean died at age 82 in 2025. During that time, he never talked to the press. A lot of people thought Dolly was single, but she always said she was in a relationship, it was just between them. It began next to a washing machine and went on forever. Dolly signed with Monument Records when she was 19 years old in 1965. Hello, I'm Dolly was her first record, which came out in 1967. The single, Dumb Blonde, got to number 24 on the Billboard Country chart and stayed there for 14 weeks. The song was brave because it poked fun at the image and pushed back against it. A lot of country music women were told to be nice and soft. When Dolly spoke, she used wit and rebellion. They saw her as a songwriter as well as a voice, which changed everything. She and Uncle Bill had written more than 150 songs together by 1968. Put It Off Until Tomorrow was one of them. It was a hit for Bill Phillips and won a BMI Song of the Year award. It got to number 8 on the country charts. That award showed she wasn't just a smart kid. She was an author who wrote about real things. She needed help getting around the Nashville machine, and Bill Owens was there to help. He taught her and watched out for her. The popularity of that song brought in money and peace of mind. It showed that a young woman from a shack with no running water could write songs that people in America would want to sing back. But getting to Nashville wasn't a clean deal. In the end, Dolly told everyone about the sexual harassment she had to deal with. Producers, agents, and powerful men who offer contracts in exchange for favors. She said being funny helped her get through most of it. Years of being poor and being turned down made her build a shell. She said it was normal in conversations. It wasn't a surprise. It was planned. That made her angry. When Year Me Too was going on, she told those stories again, but this time to make younger women feel less alone. Her big break came in 1967, when she went on Porter Wagoner's TV show. He liked her demo tape and asked her to sing with him on a duo. Over 1 million people saw Dolly every week on the show, but there were some rules. Wagoner tried to manage how people saw her. That was it. He didn't want any makeup or short clothes. She had to fit into a mold, his mold. As her fame grew, so did the stress. She wanted power over her ideas. He kept pulling the reins. They were together until 1975, but Dolly was no longer interested in being with him. This was written in 1973. A real redhead bank worker who had dated Carl Dean and a young fan both gave ideas for it. It took 10 minutes to write the song. It just came out of her. The Pain was her first #1 song. It was real that they were weak and jealous. It really hurt. Since then, more than 200 recordings of Jolene have been made. That raw feeling made it last forever. Then 1974 came along. To say goodbye to Porter Wagoner, Dolly wrote, I Will Always Love You. It was a song about breaking up with a business partner, not a lover. He didn't want her to go. He tried to stop her. She cried all night after writing it. That year and again in 1982, the song was #1 on the charts. This song became a huge hit in 1992 when Whitney Houston sang it. It made lots of money. But at its heart was still Dolly, who was trying to leave politely. She switched to RCA Records in 1968. The title of her first song with them, Just Because I'm a Woman, was about cheating. She had seen guys get away with cheating while women were shamed for life. It was an honest song that spoke to me. It wasn't nice. It wasn't soft. It was true. Some people thought she might become famous after that one song. Wagner wasn't quick to give up. In 1975, he sued her for $3 million, saying she broke the deal they had made. People said behind the scenes that he was controlling. He shut down shows and tried to get her to keep working with him. Even though the case was over, the cracks were made public. Dolly was freed, but the fight hurt her. People saw it as a sign of what country music women had to go through to stand on their own. There were rumors that they were having an affair. There was stress, but nothing was set in stone. There were fights on set. A guitar got broken by Wagoner in the studio one time. The control, the ability, and the jealousy. Everything clashed. They made something lovely together, but it cost them something. One new thing brought Dolly Parton to the public's attention in 1980. In the movie 9 to 5, she played Dorothy Rhodes, a beautiful, smart secretary whose shady boss, Frank Hart, made fun of her all the time. It wasn't just a part. Joan Collins, who co-starred in and directed the movie, chose Dolly herself. Jane knew what it was like to be ignored, talked down to, and used because she had been a victim of sexism in Hollywood. Before she became famous, Dolly had lived like that in temporary jobs in Nashville. The movie made more than $103.9 million around the world and gave working women a voice. Tired of not being cared for. Her self-written theme song did more than just hit the top of the charts. It got her a Golden Globe nomination and an Oscar nominee. A lot of women held real pain and the truth behind the glitter. A few years later, in 1984, she passed out on stage in Indianapolis after years of pain she hadn't talked about. Endometriosis, a disease that affects 1 in 10 women, was found to be the cause. No one had thought about her pain. She had part of her uterus removed in 1985. It made it impossible for her to have children, and that made her feel even worse inside. She got so depressed that she thought about putting her life down. Popeye, her dog, knew something was wrong and nudged her. And ended the moment. That short break pulled her back from the edge. It was something she never forgot. Even though she smiled in public, she was still sad inside, and it would never go away. It changed how she saw herself and everything else. Dolly started Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, in 1986 while she was still getting better. She spent $65 million to fix up an old amusement park so that her neighbors could get jobs and the neighborhood would get better. Some people called it giving up. People said she made her youth in the Appalachians into a brand. The jobs were real, though. The grants she gave money for were real. By 2023, more than 3 million people came each year. Still, not everyone thought it was the right thing to do. Dolly didn't move. She said that defending her people was worth the bad press. Behind the scenes, though, more cuts were starting to show. She was in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Burt Reynolds in 1982. They didn't just act well together on screen. It grew into more than just a friendship. She later called it a affair of the heart. She felt trapped, used, and emotionally broken after the event, though. She said it was like being abused by fame itself. It happened right after she had surgery and her sense of self was taking a hit. She stayed out of the public eye for 2 years and tried to get herself back together in secret. Her book, Coat of Many Colors, came out in 2016 and confirmed what fans had long thought. There was harm done. She made it sound like a family member molested her, but she never said who it was. It was enough what she shared. She had always written sad songs, and now people knew why. The songs weren't just pretty words. They were staying alive. Coat of Many Colors wasn't just about being poor. It was about being broken and small. But she held on to mercy instead of anger. That choice changed her. It made her less angry, but it didn't take away the pain. In 1986, her family also sued her mother, Avie. Most of Dolly's brothers thought Avie was no longer able to handle her money. She was 77 years old and spending a lot of money, but Floyd and Frida, Dolly's twin children, stood by their mother. They didn't want anyone to be able to control her. The family was torn apart for years by the court case. Opening scars that had been buried since childhood. It didn't end until Avie died in 2003, but the wounds were still there. People outside of Dolly's family thought she was stable, but things were always changing there. In a place other than Tennessee, Kenny Rogers had his own storm coming on. He was born in Houston, Texas, on August 21, 1938. He was one of 8 kids living in a government housing project at the time. As a builder, his dad made just $75 a week. Every meal was a peanut butter sandwich. People passed down clothes until they were worn out. His mom was a nurse and often worked late into the night. He had to take care of himself when he wasn't at work or school. People were shocked when he said on national TV in 1986 that he was the first Rogers to finish high school. He had done something that no one in his family had ever done. He won a county talent show at the Texan Theater in 1949, when he was only 11 years old. When the crowd cheered, it lit a fire inside him. I got a job as a busboy at the Rice Hotel for $9 a week. To make ends meet, he also swept floors at a hat store. In high school, he joined a doo-wop group called the Scholars. Their local hit, Poor Little Doggy, gave him a taste of what he could become. His solo song, That Crazy Feeling, got him on American Bandstand in 1957. Even though he was still a youngster, his voice was becoming known outside of the city. He got married to John Rogers in 1960. He was 22 years old. They were married for 3 years. His traveling, his goals, and the fact that he could never give her time made it fall apart. In the end, he accepted it. They were not meant to be together. It wasn't hate, it was just being away. That was the start of a long theme. He joined the up-and-coming folk group the New Christy Minstrels in 1966. Their song, Green, Green, was a big hit. 3 years ago, it got to number 14 on the Billboard charts, but Kenny felt stuck. He didn't want to be safe. He was looking for crazy things. So, in 1967, he split up with 3 other friends and started the first edition. Some people thought he was crazy to leave something that worked, but Kenny wasn't trying to stay alive. He wanted to make something. They put out the psychedelic song, Just Dropped In 1968, and it went to number 4. Behind closed doors, Kenny was trying out marijuana, and the song mirrored that dreamy fog. He never talked about drugs in public because he didn't want to upset his strict fans. The late-night jam sessions and crazy energy, on the other hand, changed him. He had his own TV show called Rollin' on the River by 1970. It ran until 1972 and had bands like the Carpenters on it. The band looked smooth on screen, but it was breaking when it wasn't being filmed. There was cocaine everywhere. There is pressure to do well, keep happy, and stay important. It made them tired. Kinvasi joined to make things easier, but it wasn't enough. The show was over. The band began to fall apart. Some people knew the truth about the drugs even though Kenny didn't say much about them. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town caused another stir in 1969. It was a trap story from a Vietnam veteran. And seeing his wife leave him. While the song did well on the charts, disability rights activists were not happy with it. They said it made them feel sorry for and ashamed of themselves. Kenny stood by the track and said it was meant to show harsh facts. He had to deal with the disagreements for years. From 1964 to 1976, he was married to Margot Anderson in his second marriage. They took her daughter in and tried to make it work. But his job kept drawing him away. Margot talked about being alone, having long stretches of silence, and waiting for someone who was never home. When it was over, Kenny used his pain to write songs. The cuts were still there, though. During the tours for the first version, Kenny got really into gambling. He wasted a lot of money in Las Vegas, sometimes the band's money. It became a problem that they all tried to avoid. Years later, people would link that habit to his hit movie The Gambler. But it wasn't poetic back then. It was a mess. He quit the band in 1976. Lucille had reached number 1 on the country charts and number 5 on the pop charts by 1977. He was by himself, but not by himself. Marianne Gordon, his third wife, had just become his wife. The music danced with their love and pain. More than 2 million copies of the song were sold. People could understand his voice because it was telling true stories. The Gambler came out in 1978. His fame grew after it hit the top of the charts. Kenny was losing more than $100,000 a year at poker, even though the songs made him sound calm and wise. He sold his own gold watch one time just to play. He laughed about it afterward. But the drug use left real cracks. He made the song We've Got Tonight with Sheena Easton in 1983. The pair got to number 6. There were lots of rumors about an affair. His marriage to Marianne was falling apart, and reporters loved the stories about it. He never said for sure, but it was already too late. The split came next. The rumors stuck around. The first Kenny Rogers Roasters opened in 1991. He teamed up with John Y. Brown Jr., who used to be the boss of KFC. Their chicken joints that cooked over wood-fired heat did very well. 400 stores opened. But they went bankrupt in 1998. Too much and too quickly had been added. The joke was even used on Seinfeld. Kenny lost a lot of money. He put on a brave face, but it hurt. He won 3 Grammys over the course of his career. Among them was Best Male Country Voice for The Gambler in 1980. But in the 1990s, he looked for young people in a different way. He had surgical procedures to change his looks. The effects made him look shocked all the time. In 2002, he said that he always looked shocked and felt bad about the choice. Vanity had gone wrong. Things got worse in 1992. Cannabis was his ex-wife, and he sued her for $6 million. She gave out phone sex tapes that showed private calls that hurt his reputation. The court case was awful. It was worse for his image. Not a clean ending, but it was quiet. That scandal's pain never really went away. It seemed like magic at first, but it almost didn't work out. Islands in the Stream became a top hit in both country and pop music in 1983, which is not often seen. It was great when Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton's voices blended together on the radio, but the studio meetings were a battleground. Barry Gibb had made a good duo, but Kenny wanted more solo parts. He didn't just ask, he pushed, rewrote parts, and yelled. Barry later said that things got so tense that the song almost fell apart. Dolly, who was known for making every room feel better, sat still and far away. The label was afraid that the whole thing would blow up as they watched egos fight. People heard a compromise that was held together with strain. Later, both of them said they were friends first, but behind the scenes, the heat never really went away. There was a feud that went on for years, even though the two people smiled for the cameras. He was 61 years old in 1999. And start all over again. Dreamcatcher Records is his own label, and Buy Me a Rose is the first album this label has put out. There was a lot of heart in it, and it went straight to the top of the country charts. Even though it looked like a return, Kenny was actually falling apart inside. His marriage to Wanda Miller, which began in 1997, was beginning to fall apart. Afterward, he said that playing that song was an escape from the truth. He wasn't living the love that was in the words. He didn't want to believe that even his 5th marriage might be falling apart. Even though they were together for 23 years, it wasn't known until 2020 that they were no longer together. The cracks were there all along, though. Kenny had a different dream a long time ago, on a huge 1,200-acre plot of land in Georgia. Horses from Arabia. His collection was one of the best in the country and was worth a lot of money. He was proud of them. Then, in 1995, there was a fire on the farm. 20 horses died. Some of them were winners. He had given some of them names like children. He had been broken. The insurance company wouldn't pay for the full damage, and Kenny went to court for years to try to get back what he had built. He never really did. The land never looked as good as it did before, and the fight tired him out. He still talked about those horses with a pain that wouldn't go away. Then 2013 came along. Kenny was 75 years old. 3-way heart surgery was done on him. It wasn't just getting older that caused it. He had diabetes that got so bad that doctors told him he might lose a leg. A man who had spent decades walking tall on stage was about to lose an arm. He called off shows. He stayed at home. He began to talk quietly about his past. He said that using cocaine in the 1970s almost cost him his job and hurt his body in ways that he could never fix. He felt the weight of those decisions slowly at first, and then all at once. He had another child in 2004, when he was 66 years old. They have twin boys named Justin and Jordan, who were born through IVF to his wife Wayne. He loved them so much. But being happy at home didn't mean everyone was at peace. Chris, his son from a previous marriage, sued him over the trust fund in 2012. Christopher said it was because of the twins. Things got bad in the case. Even though there was never a public answer, the anger came out. Already hard for Kenny, his home life got even worse. There was always a focus on everything, even the most private parts. Then there was the book. Kenny's book Luck or something like it came out in 2012 and told many fans the truth they didn't want to hear. He was having mistresses. In the 1980s, one with a backup singer almost led to a child, and he paid money to stay out of the news. Some people said he was seeing them, and he also quietly dumped them. He said that fame was his real lover and that it broke him in ways that he could never fully get back. He even admitted to having phone sex when he was on tour and was alone in a hotel room, paying to keep those stories from getting out. The kind man with the beard and smile had been carrying a lot more than just songs. In the early 1980s, Kenny and Dolly saw something special in each other. They were not there before. His childhood was spent in a Houston housing project. He was born in 1938. She was one of 12 kids who lived in a small house in Tennessee. It seemed like they had known each other for a long time when they met in Nashville. They joked around, told each other secrets, and leaned in during the island meetings. They never got too close to dating, which made both of them happy. Kenny said that they didn't mean to flirt for 30 years because they knew that if they didn't stop, it would ruin everything. Dolly said it would have been like child abuse at one point. There was real love, but not that kind. In 1985, neither of them was named a winner at the CMA Awards. The news talked a lot about jealousy and rifts, but it wasn't like that at all. Dolly had a hysterectomy and was now getting better. After decades of traveling, Kenny's knees were giving out. They just couldn't work together. But the news spread the story that they had a fight. They didn't. It was only a matter of time before they healed. After many years, they laughed about it and called it gossip made up from nothing. The so-called silent years of the 1990s were less noisy, but there were still a lot of rumors going around. He had a chicken chain called Roasters that he was busy with. It was a joke that Dolly told once, and the press took it like she threw a knife. She hadn't. As usual, she was making fun of him. But the quote was changed, and all of a sudden they were fighting again. The truth was that they had too much work and life to handle. Not because they were mad, but because that's what people do. The whole world wanted excitement. They wished for peace. He died in 2020 at the age of 81. Dolly cried live on TV. She said she hadn't done one more song with him because she was afraid it would be bad for his health. Before he died, Kenny told her he was sorry for not giving it his all in the studio. "I'm sorry he put so much stress on her during the big hits." They talked and made things clear. She said they had a special bond and that they had never been at odds with each other. The world watched as two people worked together to make something beautiful. They split everything 50-50, even though people kept saying there were royal fights. No trouble and no hidden claims. In 2012, Kenny even made Dolly a guitar as a thank you gift. Tabloids found the truth dull, but they found it beautiful. Even when things at work were crazy, fairness was what made it all worth it. Their farewell performance in 2017 was a huge deal. Kenny wanted to spend the night with the gambler until the end. Dolly wanted to hear another song. Behind the scenes, they had a short but sharp talk. After laughing and hugging, they went on their way. On October 25, 2017, they stood under the lights one last time at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. The tickets went quickly, some cost as much as $299.50. The show made more than $20 million, and that was it. He was done. New music came out in 2021. It had songs made between 2008 and 2011 that had not been released yet. One of them was a long-lost duet with Dolly called "Tell Me That You Love Me." Fans were told they could see an image of her at live shows, but the costs made that impossible. Still, the music made people feel something deep inside. We didn't need a hologram for the record. They could still be heard together after all those years. After that, in 2024, Dolly's cookbook came out. good-lookin', cookin', told stories about the meals they shared. Rachel, her sister, helped write it. The note had Dolly's favorite tortilla recipe for Kenny in it. It was easy, just cheese, jalapeno, and fried. Still, it meant something. Like their music, it was the kind of food you make when everything is too loud.